Good news, everyone. Evil Genius Zero here, welcoming you to another conversation. Today, we're going to talk about my new series. I'm kind of excited about this. The idea came to me last night, and the idea... I actually tried to do a video about this a couple of weeks ago, and I kept failing. Because I was going all over the place, and like usual, but it was just completely fucking uneditable garbage. And I did it twice, and maybe even three times, and I still just couldn't make it happen, guys. So this idea is quite simply to have a video series called Everybody Wants to Rule the World, describing my plans for world domination. So this is going to be a political topic, and so week to week, it might be focused on one thing or another, but you're going to get to know where I come from philosophically and, to some extent politically, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, Hillary's awesome, Trump sucks, or vice versa, I will talk about political figures, and people who are behind those political figures, and news and things like that, and you'll get to see my spin. I don't know where I fall on the political spectrum anymore. At some points I've identified more as a capitalist, and other times more socialist, or I think even for briefly I was all about communism, very briefly. I would say, weirdly, even though I'm generally left leaning, or I have been for most of my adult life, I've been intrigued by a lot of people on the right recently, and so I've been trying to look at that, and in all reality, guys, I think that the election, 2016 election, U.S. election, really freaked me out because I felt like I was very disconnected, and honestly my response to that was kind of to completely disengage, and I would still say I'm fairly disengaged from the day-to-day politics, and so that's not what this video topic is going to be about. That's not what this series is going to be about. This is really just a power fantasy for me, and we're going to talk about what I would do. So the first thing I would do. And this is going to be the only time I talk about prioritization. After this video, you're going to have to assume that any one of these things could be tackled at any point in my, fictional career. Someday I will rule the world, guys, though, so watch out. The basic ground rules are I am elected president of the United States, right? I'm just most comfortable with this political system and the problems that we are facing, and that kind of thing. For the purposes of this series, I am the commander-in-chief. I will represent all of you, and we are one America. So, first thing I'm going to do, and again, this is going to be the only time I talk about priorities. Every other, video of these, they're going to be interchangeable. Maybe I do this first, maybe I do that first, whatever, or before. The first things I'm going to do are twofold. One, I will campaign for and hopefully successfully achieve the outcome of removing the constitutional amendment that prohibits presidents from longer than 2 terms. Now, why would I do that? Because I want to do this for a while. I want to see this thing through to a good point, and you can't do that in 8 years. I also think that there's a big problem with the idea of a term limit in one part of the system when other parts of the system have no term limits. So the legislative branch, and it has no term limit, and the judicial branch specifically, they are lifetime appointments. Those people, if they retire, the judges, federal judges and the Supreme Court, most specifically the Supreme Court, they are in there for life or until they choose to retire. So that's a very dangerous, thing for only one of the branches to have such a strict limitation, I think. Now, I know that a lot of people would argue against that, and fuck them. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so that's number one. I'm going to talk about two things in this video, though. The second thing, I will campaign for and hopefully successfully enact a balanced budget amendment, forcing the federal government and all lower governments to maintain a balanced budget. So either zero loss in the instance of war or economic disaster. That would have to be declared by Congress. Those two. Declared war by Congress and economic disaster declared by Congress. Okay? Those would be the only times the governments would be allowed to take on debt. So, that's huge. You would have a zero debt system, a zero increasing debt, right? So we already owe trillions of dollars. We obviously have to pay that back at some point, but that is not part of this agenda per se, although look ahead to future videos. The reason I think that this is important is because we're just borrowing from other countries. We're eventually going to have to pay them back. And at the point that we're at, we're borrowing way more than we can afford. It would be like if you owed something like 5 years of your salary out. Now, if you have a house, if the 5 years that you are buying, that you have out in debt is for your house, that's probably a good amount of debt to have. A good, depending on your age and stuff like that, for sure. But at my age, I'm 35. That would not be a terrible amount of debt for me to have. 5 times my salary. Yeah, 5 times my salary would be totally okay. All right, but there's like an expectation that I'm going to pay that debt and make routine payments towards that debt that would, eventually pay the principal completely off within a reasonable term, 30 years. In the instance of the United States, for us to pay back that amount, it's going to take us a long, long time. And I don't think 30 years is realistic. So that was a video that I tried to do earlier, maybe about a month ago, tried to talk about this as a whole. So that's going to be into this topic. Those are going to be the things I do when I rule the world. I hope you find this video interesting. I hope that you're okay with it, honestly, and the direction I'm going to go. I'm only going to be putting out one of these every week or so, and I imagine that they're going to slow down and trickle, and maybe I'll do like one a month at some point, or I'm not entirely sure. I do have a lot of ideas that I want to share with you guys, and hopefully they spawn productive and interesting discussions, but it's not going to be the focus of this channel. It's mostly still going to be nerdy stuff. And again, I hope that you guys can expect that I'm going to do this from a nerdy perspective. When I talk about the budget, I'm going to come with numbers. When I talk about, anything, I'm going to try and think about it from a nerdy, almost sci-fi perspective. And it should be a lot of fun. Please comment, subscribe if you aren't already. Hit me up on Facebook at EvilGenius0, and I will catch you next time. If I rule the world.